Hello, my name is M.Nance. I am the founding president of the Annie Malone Historical Society. I'm here today to talk to you about a very important African American icon. Her name, Annie Minerva Turnbow Pope Malone. She started her business in Lovejoy, Illinois in 1900. She first came to St. Louis in 1902, hopefully to be a part of the World's Fair. However, the fair was delayed and it did not occur until 1904. That time in the middle, Annie Malone went south and interviewed with lots of other people of color and introduced her product, the Wonderful Hair Grower. That was the basis of her business. She went door to door, speaking to women about their hair care, how to keep it clean, how to keep it washed, how to keep it groomed. In that particular era, women of color put goose grease, fat, lye, lard on their hair to try to tame it, to try to loosen those really tight curls. And many times what happened was it damaged their scalp, broke their hair, and they wore rags on their heads, not just to keep the sweat off their brow, but to hide their hair and their scalp. So Annie Malone comes along and she provides a way for women to groom themselves that made them feel a lot better. Well, she also found that she could teach lots of women how to do the very same thing she did as she walked from door to door. Thus began this entrepreneurial spirit of Annie Malone's, teaching other women how to do hair, how to provide themselves with a business of their own. Shortly after, Annie Malone was able to teach those women how to walk and talk and stand and order products and apply products. And shortly after that, women had businesses of their own. And she was able to duplicate that so many times over to so many places in the United States. In fact, Annie Malone decided to open a business school, a college she called the Poro College. And in every state in the United States, Annie Malone opened those colleges. It was the first time a school was open for women to prepare hair and cosmetics. It was the first school of its kind. She was the person who taught many cosmetologists and hairstylists in the United States how to have the school, provide those lessons for legions of women, to advertise in newspapers and in magazines that were not available to people of color. So the black press really began to cover every single thing she did. In different places in the United States, they assigned a newspaper agent to a Poro College to find out what was going on so that the people in the community could always have an idea of what she was doing. Annie Malone was not just a businesswoman focused on hair care. She was focused on her community as well. And she taught her agents not just to be a part of the hair care industry, but to be a part of their community. She encouraged them to buy property, to buy bonds, to buy stocks, to become politically involved in the communities where they were. She was a person who believed in giving to support and showing people how to be the best they had in them. She supported a number of different charities. One of her favorite charities is here in St. Louis. It was the Annie Malone Children and Family Service Center. At the time, when it first, well, not when it first started, but when Annie Malone became involved in 1919 as their board president, she gave the first $10,000 to buy the property that became the facility that it is. That was the first permanent home built for people of color. It was built in 1922. It was first put on Good Avenue, and years later they named the street after Annie Malone, and in 1946 named the facility that was once the St. Louis Colored Orphans Home after Annie Malone, the Annie Malone Home. Many of you are familiar with the parade, the Annie Malone Parade that takes place each year, and it's named in her honor. It was named because Annie Malone gave so much of her life. She was president of that board from 1919, I believe, to 1947. She did so many things for St. Louis. She donated money to support so many things. The YWCA, she donated $25,000 to it. Howard University's medical facility, she donated $25,000 for. It was the largest donation that anyone had given to that university at that particular time. She donated money to the St. Louis YWCA that supported women as well, and donated the first $10,000 that started the maternity hospital at Barnes Hospital. She was one who truly believed in supporting with her funds the things that she believed in. She was one who also looked outside of the hair care industry. She dispatched filmmakers throughout the country to film many of the positive things that African Americans were doing. She brought those films back and she showed them all across the country in places like bars and churches and different community meetings that took place. She was constantly trying to uplift and educate people of color. Annie Malone was so dedicated to giving that she provided 2 scholarships to every land-grant college in the United States. She did that for those colleges in the South, particularly for people of color. How long she did that, I am not exactly sure, but I think that it was truly a testament to her commitment to educate young people when she did make that commitment. In 1927, there was a horrible tornado here in St. Louis, and it was Annie Malone's Poro College that came to the rescue for so many people in North St. Louis. That tornado was particularly devastating, and the Red Cross here in St. Louis joined with Annie Malone and the legion of Poro agents that came to the rescue of the community. For that time frame, she was able to provide food and shelter for about 5,000 people here in St. Louis. Her commitment speaks for itself. She was one who believed that when she had her annual Christmas parties, she would so often award her 5-year veterans with diamond rings, or she would provide them with monies toward a bank account. If they showed that they had been trying to save, she tried to help pad that savings account for them. Each of the people in the Poro College had to be assigned to a particular committee that worked on making sure that the Poro system, as she called it, worked for everyone. She would make sure that they had committees that would take care of entertainment, that would take care of housing, that would take care of the sick, that would take care of so many operations that needed to occur within that Poro system. It was a very large thing to be able to say that you were Poro trained. She traveled the country and talked to the different colleges and talked to the different committees that helped to support her empire. Annie Malone had not just colleges across the United States. She had colleges and Poro agents in different countries: Nova Scotia, Haiti, Africa, the Philippines, Canada. She had so many different ties to the country, and what was very interesting to me was that she did not have one Twitter feed. She did not have a computer. She did not have a Facebook page. She used her communication very well. I think she taught lots of people what the meaning of communication really was. Annie Malone trained 75,000 agents across the world by the time she died in 1957. So ladies and gentlemen, all that are listening, Annie Malone was what a lot of people did not really know her to be. She was the first African American millionaire. A lot of people don't know, but Madam C.J. Walker was trained by Annie Malone. She was one of Annie Malone's Poro agents for a good time. Greatness, looking for the best that's in you, is all of what Annie Malone ever wanted for any of her agents. When she was in St. Louis, she first started in a 4-room building. She moved then to an 11-room building. And in 1918, when there were segregationist laws, when there was a lot of discrimination going on as to where someone could live or own property, Annie Malone built from the ground up a facility that was more than 100 rooms. It had a cafeteria that seated 300 people, an auditorium that seated 800 people. It had an ice cream parlor, lots of offices, lots of classrooms. She had our manufacturing complex right there on the property, there at St. Ferdinand and Pendleton in the Ville here in St. Louis. She opened a building that had the best and the brightest of all things that were possible in 1918. So being positive, looking at how you can be your best is the most important thing ever.